3 hours after I walked out of my parents' Labor Day barbecue, my brother called me screaming that I had ruined his life. My mother was crying in the background. My father kept saying I was destroying the family over money. But none of them were angry because I refused to give my brother half of my bonus. They were angry because I had just discovered something much worse. While they were sitting around that dinner table calling me selfish, my family had already been using my name, my credit, and my financial history behind my back. And the moment I stopped saying yes, their entire plan started collapsing. What they did next changed the way I looked at family forever. My name is Celeste Langford. I am 33 years old. And the night my brother demanded half of my bonus was the night I finally understood that my family had never seen my success as something I earned. To them, it was something they could divide. I had walked into my parents' Labor Day barbecue carrying dessert, trying to act normal after the hardest year of my career. The kind of year where I stayed late, missed weekends, solved problems nobody else wanted to touch, and finally received a bonus that felt like proof I had survived it. I was not there to brag. I was not there to make anyone jealous. I just wanted one peaceful family meal where good news could stay good news. But before I had even finished eating, my brother looked at me from across the table and said I should hand over half of it because he had kids. And I did not. He said it like my life was cheaper because I lived alone. My mom did not look shocked. She looked prepared. She told me that was what family did, that I was supposed to help. My dad stared at me like I had already failed some invisible test and said it was unbelievable how selfish I had become. For a moment, everyone waited for me to apologize, to soften, to explain why I deserved to keep the money I had earned. But something in me went quiet instead. I set my napkin down, stood up, and said, no. Absolutely not. They thought I was being dramatic when I walked out. They thought I would get in my car, cry, feel guilty, and come back before dessert. But late that night, when my phone started ringing again and again, I realized they were not calling because they loved me. They were calling because they had finally discovered what happened when I stopped being their emergency fund. And before I tell you what they found out after I left, tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what the weather's like there right now. I want to see how far the story travels. The truth was my bonus did not appear out of nowhere. It was not luck, and it was not some cute workplace surprise that landed in my lap while I sat comfortably at a desk. I worked as a senior logistics operations analyst for a medical supply company in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the year before that barbecue had nearly swallowed me whole. Hospitals were waiting on equipment, shipments were delayed, vendors blamed warehouses blamed weather, and everyone blamed operations when something did not arrive on time. I was the person answering calls at midnight, tracking surgical supply crates across 3 states, and eating cold takeout at my kitchen counter because one more emergency had to be fixed before morning. So, when my manager told me I was receiving a performance bonus for helping save one of our biggest hospital accounts, I cried in my car. Not because I was suddenly rich, but because for once, the sacrifice had a number attached to it. I should have known better than to tell my family. But hope makes people careless. I told my mom, Diane Langford, during a phone call because I wanted to hear pride in her voice. She paused, then said, well, that must be nice. That was it. My father, Paul Langford, had always believed struggle was more respectable when it belonged to a man. If my brother Kyle was exhausted, he was carrying a family. If I was exhausted, I was dramatic. Kyle was 38, married to Amber, and had 3 kids. He ran a small lawn care and hauling business that always seemed one good season away from success and one bad decision away from collapse. Every family gathering came with a new crisis. A truck repair. A late insurance payment. A client who had not paid yet. A school expense for the kids. And somehow every crisis ended with someone looking at me. At first, I helped because I loved them. I paid for truck tires once. I covered a utility bill after Mom said Amber was embarrassed to ask. I sent money for groceries one Thanksgiving because Dad said, your brother has more mouths to feed. But help turns into expectation when nobody is grateful. Kyle rarely paid me back. And when I asked, he acted wounded. Mom would say, do you really need it right now? Dad would mutter, family does not keep receipts. The strangest part was that I was never allowed to be tired. I lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment near downtown Raleigh, so everyone treated my life as empty space they could fill with their needs. If I bought myself a good coat, Mom said, must be nice not having kids. If I took a weekend trip, Carl joked, some of us have real responsibilities. By Labor Day weekend, I already knew Mom had told Kyle about the bonus. She invited me to the barbecue twice, which was unusual. The second time, she added, and try not to come empty-handed. Kyle and Amber have had a rough month. I heard the warning inside the request. Still, I went. I told myself it was just ribs in the backyard, football on TV, kids running through the grass, paper plates, and family small talk. When I pulled into my parents' driveway that afternoon, Kyle's truck was parked crooked near the garage with new chrome trim I had never seen before. Everything looked normal. That was the danger. In my family, the worst conversations never began with shouting. They began with smiles that waited for the right moment to sharpen. For the first hour, nobody said the word bonus. That almost made it worse. I could feel it sitting in the air, moving from person to person, like a secret everyone knew except the person they planned to trap. Mom kept asking about work in a voice that sounded casual, but landed too carefully. Dad kept talking about how expensive everything had gotten. Carl kept making comments about families needing support these days, especially families with young kids. Amber stayed quieter than usual, helping the children with plates and juice boxes. And I remember thinking she looked like someone who knew a storm was coming, but did not know where lightning would hit. We sat outside at the long patio table after Dad finished grilling. There were ribs, corn, baked beans, potato salad, and that forced holiday cheer families use when they want to pretend the past is not sitting at the table with them. I kept my answers short. Work was fine. The apartment was fine. No, I was not dating anyone. Seriously. Yes, the hospital account had gone well. Carl leaned back in his chair and wiped barbecue sauce from his thumb. So, that is the big project, right? He asked. The one Mom said got you that bonus? My fork stopped halfway to my plate. Mom looked down too quickly. Dad took a sip of sweet tea and said nothing. I looked at Kyle and said, it was a performance bonus. Yes. Kyle nodded slowly like he was pretending to consider something. Good. Then you can help. I asked, help with what? He rested both arms on the table and said, half. The patio went quiet except for one of the kids laughing near the fence. I blinked. Half of what? He looked annoyed that I was making him say it. Half your bonus, Celeste. I have a family. You do not. The words landed calmly, which somehow made them worse. Like my life had just been weighed and found cheaper than his. I looked at Mom. She did not look surprised. She looked ready. Celeste, she said softly. Your brother has 3 children. You are in a position to help. That is what family does. Dad set his glass down hard. Nobody is saying you do not work hard, but you have to think beyond yourself for once. For once. I thought about the tires, the groceries, the bills, the birthday gifts for the kids that somehow became necessities because Kyle and Amber were short that month. Kyle leaned forward, encouraged by their support. Look, I am not trying to be a jerk, he said, using the exact tone people use when they are about to be one. But you go home to a quiet apartment. You do not know what it is like to have mouths to feed. I said, you are asking for thousands of dollars. He shrugged. I am asking my sister to act like a sister. Mom reached across the table and touched my wrist. It looked loving from a distance, but her fingers pressed down like a warning. Do not make this ugly, she said. Your brother is under stress. I pulled my hand back. I am under stress, too. Dad scoffed. From what? Email? Carl gave a small laugh, not loud, just enough to tell me the roles had already been assigned. Kyle was the struggling father. Mom was the moral judge. Dad was the enforcer. And I was the selfish daughter who needed to be corrected in public. Something inside me went still. I looked at Kyle and asked, is this a request or a demand? He stared at me. It is common sense. I nodded once. Then my answer is no. Mom's face tightened. Dad's chair scraped against the patio. Unbelievable, he snapped. You really only care about yourself. Kyle threw his napkin down. You get one bonus, and suddenly you are better than everybody. I stood up slowly. No, I said. I am not better than anybody, but my bonus is not family property. Mom hissed, sit down. The neighbors can hear you. Good, I said, picking up my purse. Maybe they should hear the part where your son demanded half my paycheck at dinner. Dad pointed toward the chair like I was still 16. Do not walk away while I am talking to you. I looked at him, and for the first time that tone did not pull me back. I have spent years paying for peace in this family, I said. I am done buying it. Then I walked through the house, past the framed family photos where I was always standing slightly to the side, and out the front door. The air outside was warm, but I felt cold all over. Not scared cold. Awake cold. I made it halfway down the driveway before the front door opened behind me. Celeste, stop. Mom called. She did not sound worried. She sounded embarrassed. Kyle came out behind her, angry now that his performance at the table had not worked. Dad followed last, slower, like he wanted everyone to remember he was the final authority. I turned around beside my car. Kyle spread his hands. You are really going to leave over money? I almost smiled. You demanded half my bonus, and somehow I am the one making it about money. Mom folded her arms. You are twisting this. He asked for help. No, I said. He demanded payment for having children. Kyle's face reddened. Do not talk about my kids like that. Then stop using them as a receipt, I said. Dad stepped forward. Watch your mouth. I looked at him. Why? Kyle did not have to watch his when he told me my life mattered less because I live alone. Mom's eyes narrowed. Nobody said that. He said exactly that. You just like the message enough to translate it into family values. Kyle laughed without humor. One bonus, and you think you are some executive. No, I said. I think I am an adult who earned her money. He took a step down from the porch. You know what my insurance costs? You know what equipment costs? You know what 3 kids cost? Yes, I said, because somehow I have helped pay for all of it. That shut him up for half a second. I kept going before they could fill the silence with guilt. I paid for your truck tires 2 years ago. I covered your insurance gap last winter. I sent money for groceries when Mom said the kids needed food, then saw you post a picture of a new flat screen the next week. I have been helping. You just call it nothing because I finally said no. Mom looked away. Dad's jaw worked like he wanted to argue, but could not choose which lie to use first. Kyle pointed at me. Keeping score against family is low. No, I said. Taking money and pretending it never happened is low. Mom's voice sharpened. This is not who you are, Celeste. That sentence had controlled me for years. It meant I was not being useful enough. It meant I had stepped outside the character they wrote for me. I opened my car door, then stopped. There was one more thing. I opened my banking app, scrolled to recurring transfers, and found the $400 I had been sending every month toward Kyle's commercial truck insurance because he swore it was only until spring. It was September. I tapped cancel. One small button. One quiet click. One rope cut. Kyle saw the screen and frowned. What are you doing? Ending temporary help that somehow became permanent. His face shifted. Wait, what does that mean? It means your insurance payment is your responsibility now. Mom gasped. Celeste, that affects his business. I looked at her. Then he should not have built his business budget around my silence. Dad's voice dropped low. You are going to create a real problem. No, I said. I am going to stop solving one. For the first time that night, Kyle looked uneasy. I got into my car. Mom was still talking, Dad was still warning, and Kyle was still calling me selfish, but their voices became muffled when I shut the door. I drove for 10 minutes before pulling into the parking lot of a closed pharmacy near the highway. Then my phone buzzed. It was Dana Brooks, my best friend and the only person who knew enough about my family to never say, but they mean well. I answered, and before I said hello, she asked, "Are you safe?" I closed my eyes. I left. Good, she said. I told her everything. Dana was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Celeste, listen carefully. If they felt entitled enough to demand half your bonus in front of everyone, you need to check what else they think they are entitled to. I frowned at the windshield. What does that mean? Dana used to work in fraud prevention at a credit union, and when she got serious, she sounded like someone reading a file nobody else wanted opened. Bank accounts, subscriptions, shared plans, credit inquiries, anything with your name attached. I almost said they would never do that, but the words died before they reached my mouth because I remembered Mom asking for a copy of an old tax form last spring. I remembered Kyle needing my full legal name and birthday for a family form. I remembered Dad snapping that I was paranoid when I asked why he still had my documents in the filing cabinet. Dana heard my silence. "Go home," she said. "Check everything tonight." By the time I reached my apartment, my phone had 17 missed calls. 6 from Mom, 4 from Dad, 7 from Kyle. There were texts too, but I did not open them yet. I knew the rhythm. First, they would be angry, then wounded, then scared for the kids. Then, they would accuse me of destroying the family. I had been trained for years to respond somewhere between guilt and surrender. That night, I set the phone face down and opened my laptop instead. My apartment was quiet in a way my parents' house never was. No shouting from the porch, no kids crying in the background, no television covering conversations nobody wanted to have. Just the hum of the refrigerator and my own breathing as I started with my bank statements. At first, it was exactly what I expected and somehow still infuriating. The $400 recurring transfer to Kyle's truck insurance, a family phone add-on I had agreed to cover for 3 months and then forgotten because Mom kept saying they were almost caught up. A streaming bundle attached to my email that had grown into premium channels I never watched. Small things. Easy to miss. Easy to explain away. That was how they got you. Not always with one giant theft, but with little leaks until your own life started losing pressure. I canceled what I could, changed passwords, removed saved payment methods, and made a list. Then I searched my email for Kyle's business name. Nothing. I searched for my old address. A few harmless things came up. Then I searched my full legal name. That was when I found the email. It was from a regional credit union Kyle had mentioned once while talking about business loans. The subject line said, "Commercial vehicle loan inquiry pending verification." My stomach tightened before I clicked it. The message referenced financing connected to a commercial truck and hauling equipment. Then I saw the phrase that made the room tilt. Guarantor information. My name. My email. An old address that had not been mine in years. Someone had put me down as financial backup for Kyle's business loan. Not as a reference. Not as a sister. As someone whose credit could make his risk look safer. I heard Dana's voice in my head. Check everything tonight. I pulled up my credit monitoring account. There it was. A recent hard inquiry from the same credit union. Not huge damage, but real. Real enough to affect me. Real enough to prove that dinner had not just been about half my bonus. Dinner had been pressure. A public attempt to shame me into agreeing to a family rescue before I discovered the bigger plan. Suddenly, the whole evening rearranged itself in my mind. Kyle's confidence. Mom's prepared speech. Dad's anger when I said no. They had not been shocked by my refusal because they expected kindness. They were panicked because they needed access. I called Dana back and said, "They used my information." She did not gasp. That scared me more than if she had. "What did you find?" she asked. I told her about the inquiry, the guarantor language, the old address. Dana's voice went steady. "Freeze your credit. Screenshot everything. Do not delete messages. Do not argue on the phone until you send a written boundary." I did what she said. I froze my credit, changed my email password, changed bank passwords, turned on extra verification, and removed my card from every shared service. Every click made me angrier, but the anger was useful now. It was the kind that makes you precise. After that, I opened the texts. Mom had written, "You embarrassed your brother in front of his children." Dad wrote, "Do not make decisions when you are emotional." Kyle wrote, "You proved exactly who you are." I stared at that one for a long time. Then I opened the family group chat and typed slowly. I did not insult them. I did not explain my feelings. I made it clean enough to be forwarded to a lawyer if necessary. My bonus is not family property. My income is not open for discussion or division. I have canceled all recurring financial support connected to Kyle's household and business. I also found a credit inquiry connected to a commercial vehicle loan where my information appears without my consent. Nobody has permission to use my name, address, social security number, credit, email, or financial history for any account, loan, service, or application. If anything exists with my name attached, it must be withdrawn immediately and confirmed in writing. If this boundary is ignored, I will take formal action to protect myself. I read it twice. The old Celeste whispered that this was too harsh. Then I looked at the credit inquiry again and the old Celeste went quiet. I hit send. For almost 1 full minute, nothing happened. Then my phone exploded. Kyle called first, then Mom, then Dad. Text bubbles appeared and disappeared as if they were all trying to find the right version of innocent. I did not answer. I emailed the credit union instead, saying I had not authorized any inquiry, application, guarantor role, or use of my information connected to Kyle Langford or his business. A few minutes later, Kyle left a voicemail. His voice was not angry anymore. It was scared. Celeste, call me right now. You do not understand what you just did. I sat back, heart pounding. But I understood perfectly. I had not destroyed his plan. I had simply stopped letting my name hold it up. The calls went on for almost an hour before I answered. Not because I wanted to hear them, but because I wanted the truth directly from Kyle's mouth. I pressed accept and said nothing. Kyle started immediately. What did you do? The credit union called me. They froze the review. They said there is a dispute. I leaned back in my chair and kept my voice flat. Because I disputed it. Why would you do that? He snapped. Because I did not authorize it. There was a pause. And in that pause, I heard other voices. Mom and Dad were with him. Of course they were. They had probably formed a crisis committee the second I stopped being useful. Dad came on next. Celeste, this has gotten out of hand. I almost laughed. No, Dad. It got out of hand when my information was used without permission. Nobody used anything, he said too quickly. It was just to see what numbers would look like. So you knew. Another pause. Longer this time. Mom's voice floated in. Shaky but defensive. Your brother was under pressure. He had a chance at a big contract and he needed the truck to make it work. We thought since you have good credit and no dependents, it would not hurt to list you for the initial review. Even in a confession, they found a way to make my life sound empty. You thought wrong, I said. Kyle grabbed the phone back. It was not final. Stop acting like I stole your identity. Did I give permission? That is not the point. That is the only point. He exhaled sharply. You do not understand business. I understand consent. Dad cut in hard and familiar. Do not talk to your brother like he is a criminal. I looked at the folder on my laptop full of screenshots, emails, and proof. Then he should stop acting like my signature is a family resource. Mom started crying softly, and once upon a time that sound would have pulled me out of myself. But this time I noticed her tears came only after they were caught. Not when Kyle demanded my money. Not when Dad called me selfish. Only now when consequences entered the room. Celeste, she said, please do not ruin this for him. The kids need stability. Then Kyle should stop making unstable choices. Kyle shouted something in the background. Dad told him to calm down. Finally, Kyle said quieter, if this loan does not go through by tomorrow, I lose the equipment hold. If I lose the truck, I lose the apartment complex contract. That contract could change everything for us. Then you should have built the application on your own credit and your own honesty. I was going to ask you. No, I said. You were going to pressure me at dinner until I felt too guilty to say no. He did not deny it. Dad tried to rescue him. He made a mistake. People make mistakes. A mistake is writing down the wrong phone number, I said. This was using private information for a financial application. Mom whispered, we are still your family. Then act like it. No one spoke. I continued slowly. Here is what happens next. Kyle will contact the credit union in the morning and withdraw anything that includes my name or information. He will send me written confirmation. You and Mom will confirm in writing that you will not share, store, or use any of my personal documents again. Kyle will delete anything he has with my social security number, old tax forms, or financial details. And if I find my name connected to anything else, I will report it formally. Kyle scoffed, but it came out weak. You would really do that to your own brother. You already did something to your own sister. That shut him up. Dad sighed. You are treating us like strangers. No, I replied. I am treating you like adults who are responsible for what they do. Kyle's voice changed. Then he stopped shouting. Celeste, please, just this one time. If the contract goes through, I can pay things back. I can make it right. It was the most honest he had sounded all night, and that almost made it dangerous. There was a version of me that wanted to believe him. But then I remembered his face at the table when he said he had kids and I did not. I remembered Mom's hand pressing down on my wrist. I remembered Dad calling me selfish for protecting what I earned. No, I said. I will not attach my future to your promise. His breathing changed. So that is it. You are going to let me lose everything. No, Kyle. I am going to let you experience what you built without using me as scaffolding. Dad snapped. That is cruel. Cruel was all of you deciding my life was less important because it was quieter. Nobody had an answer. The call ended with Kyle saying he would send proof and Dad muttering that I had changed. Around midnight, an email came in from the credit union confirming they had flagged the inquiry and paused any review involving my information. 15 minutes later, Kyle texted one sentence. You got what you wanted. I typed back, no, I got my name back. He did not reply. For the first time all night, the phone stayed silent. The next few weeks were not peaceful, but they were revealing. People show you who they are when the old methods stop working. Mom tried guilt first. She sent long messages about how hurt she was, how family should not handle conflict through threats, and how I had made everything cold. Dad tried authority. He told me I needed to come over and talk like an adult, which in our family meant letting him interrupt me until I surrendered. Kyle tried every version of himself. Angry Kyle said I sabotaged his business. Sad Kyle said he was drowning and nobody cared. Brother Kyle sent an old photo of us as kids with the message, I miss when you actually loved me. I did not respond to manipulation. I responded only to facts. Did he withdraw the application? Did he delete my information? Did Mom and Dad still have copies of my documents? Did the credit union confirm removal? That was it. Amber called me 4 days after the barbecue. I almost did not answer, but something told me to. Her voice was quiet. Celeste, did Kyle put you on that loan without asking? I told her the truth. She went silent so long I thought the call had dropped. Then she said, he told me you offered. That hurt more than I expected. Not because Kyle lied. I expected that. But because I realized how many people had probably been handed a version of me that made their behavior look reasonable. Amber apologized. Not dramatically. Not with excuses. She just said, I am sorry. That was wrong. It was the first clean apology I had received. After that, things moved fast. Without my credit, Kyle did not qualify for the truck and equipment package in time. Without the truck, he lost the apartment complex contract he had been bragging about. That did not destroy his life, no matter what he told people. But it destroyed the fantasy that everyone else should absorb the cost of his choices. Amber made him sell an ATV he barely used. He picked up weekend shifts at a hardware store while keeping the clients he already had. He hated it, of course, because responsibility always feels insulting to people who are used to rescue. 3 weeks later, I agreed to meet my parents and Kyle at a diner in Raleigh. Not at their house. Not in Dad's backyard kingdom. A public place at noon with my own car parked near the exit. Dana told me not to go in hoping they would become new people. Go in knowing who you are, she said. So I did. Kyle looked exhausted when I arrived. Mom looked nervous. Dad looked irritated, which was his version of scared. I placed a folder on the table. Dad immediately said, "Is that necessary?" I said yes. I had printed the credit union email, the inquiry alert, the canceled payments, and a simple list of boundaries. No money loans. No shared accounts. No using my information. No financial conversations at family events. No calling me selfish because I refused to fund another adult's choices. Kyle stared at the folder like it offended him. You came prepared for court? No, I said. I came prepared for a family that rewrites conversations. Mom flinched. Dad opened his mouth, but I held up one hand. I am not here to debate whether I was hurt. I am here to explain what access to me looks like from now on. Kyle leaned back. Access to you. Listen to that. I looked at him. Yes, access. My time, my money, my credit, my peace. None of those are automatic anymore. For once, he did not have a quick answer. Mom looked down at her hands and said, I thought helping him meant protecting the family. You protected him from consequences, I said. That is not the same thing. Dad rubbed his face. We should not have let him use your information. It was not a perfect apology, but it was the first time he admitted the sentence out loud. Kyle muttered, I said I was sorry. I turned to him. No, you said you were sorry it became a problem. His face hardened, then softened. Maybe because Amber had stopped protecting his pride at home. Maybe because the hardware store schedule was teaching him what my transfers had been hiding. He looked away and said, I should have asked. And I would have said no, I replied. That is why you did not ask. The table went quiet. That was the truth sitting down with us, and nobody could push it off the chair. We did not end with hugs. We did not become a perfect family over coffee and pancakes, but we ended with written boundaries, confirmed removals, and the understanding that if my name appeared anywhere again, I would not call first. I would act. 2 months later, my credit score recovered from the inquiry. 6 months later, I used part of my bonus for the down payment on a small condo with morning light in the kitchen and no one else's emergency hidden in the walls. The first night I slept there, I realized something important. Peace is not always loud. Sometimes it is just your phone not ringing. Sometimes it is opening your bank app and seeing only your choices. Sometimes it is knowing love does not require you to become someone else's safety net while they call you selfish for having boundaries. What happened with Kyle taught me a lesson I wish more people learned earlier. Family can be a beautiful word, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a tool. Real family does not measure your worth by how much of yourself you give away. Real love does not demand access to your paycheck, your credit, your future, or your silence. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are education. They teach people how to treat you, and they teach you that your own life is worth protecting. I did not ruin my brother's business. I stopped letting him build it on top of me. And if that made me selfish in their eyes, then for the first time in my life, I was willing to let them be wrong. So tell me, if your own brother demanded half of your hard-earned bonus because he had kids and you lived alone and your parents took his side, what would you do? Would you pay to keep the peace? Or would you finally let them learn the cost of disrespect? My team and I are always trying to improve our scripts so each story feels emotional, powerful, and meaningful to the audience. Please remember that the events in this video are fictional and created only for entertainment and educational value. We hope the story can remind viewers that real strength often begins when someone finally stops accepting disrespect.